So we're just going to read through this psalm before we start verse mapping each of the verses. Oh, I just lost it. I hit the wrong thing. That's the problem with phones. All right, so Psalm 91. My refuge and my fortress. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress. My God, in Him I will trust. Surely He shall deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the perilous pestilence. He shall cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you shall take refuge. His truth shall be your shield and buckler. You shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor of the arrow that flies by day, nor of the pestilence that walks in darkness, nor of the destruction that lays waste at noonday. 1,000 may fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not come near you. Only with your eyes shall you look and see the reward of the wicked. Because you have made the Lord, who is my refuge, even the Most High, your dwelling place, no evil shall befall you, nor shall any plague come near your dwelling. For He shall give His angels charge over you to keep you in all your ways. In their hands they shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. You shall tread upon the lion and the cobra, the young lion and the serpent you shall trample underfoot. Because He has set His love upon me, therefore I will deliver him. I will set him on high, because he has known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. That's one of the most beautiful chapters in the whole Bible, I think, because anytime, every one of us face fears, every one of us face challenges, every one of us have things that come against us, and this chapter is just a beautiful promise from the Lord of how He will keep us and protect us in the midst of everything that we are facing. And so it's something you can pray over your family. I think you should pray it over your family on a daily basis, because these are promises that we are activating in the spiritual realm. Now, I bought this book by Peggy Joyce Ruth. Okay, really, really good book. And it's on Psalm 91. And there's a couple of stories in here I'm just going to read to you, because they're so dynamic. First one is, she was telling about a group of soldiers in World War I. Throughout history, there have been shields over individuals and groups who have stood on Psalm 91. One of the most famous examples comes from World War I, about a unit that was completely protected. On both sides of the Atlantic, religious publications reported the story of a miracle regiment whose soldiers went through some of the most intense and bloodiest battles without a single combat casualty. The best sources say it was a British-American combination unit rather than an American one. Our researchers have enjoyed rebuilding this bridge between this event and its sources, and uncovering new leads to one of the most celebrated pulpit examples of the power of Psalm 91. Our sources say that every officer, as well as every enlisted man, daily placed his trust in God by faithfully reciting Psalm 91 together. And that unit is known to have suffered not one single combat casualty.
Wow.
It is unthinkable to believe that mere chance or coincidence could have prevented so many bullets and shells from finding their intended victims. Psalm 91 has truly been a shield for entire troops of soldiers in each of our wars since World War I. Stories keep surfacing of Psalm 91 having shielded whole units who who have claimed its promises. This is the bulwark aspect of the shield of protection. But this shield has been a powerful promise for the individual. I'm going to share a remarkable story of how individualized this shield can be. During that dreadful yet triumphant week of May in 1940, when the British Army had been forced into total retreat and lay exposed on the sandy shores of Dunkirk, many miracles occurred. Lying hopelessly exposed, pinned down by Nazi planes and heavy artillery, and armed only with their rifles, the brave troops were seemingly trapped by the Channel with no place to turn for protection. A British chaplain told of lying face down in the sand for what seemed an eternity on a shell-torn beach in Dunkirk. Nazi bombers bombed their lethal charges, or dropped their lethal charges, causing shrapnel to kick up sand all around him, while other planes repeatedly strafed his position with their machine guns blazing. Although dazed by the concussions around him, the British chaplain suddenly became aware that in spite of the deafening roar of the shells and bombs falling all around him, he hadn't been hit. With bullets still raining down about him, he stood and stared with amazement at the outline of his own shape in the sand. It was the only smooth and undisturbed spot on the entire bullet-ridden beach. His heavenly shield must have fit the exact shape of his body. Note that this verse in Psalm 91:4 declares God's faithfulness to us as both a shield and a bulwark. In a double-layered analogy, the passage uses two military symbols of fortification and protection. God is our bulwark, our tower, our wall of protection in a collective sense, and He is also our shield, a very individualized defense. This verse indicates double protection. You know, we don't always understand why tragedies happen. We've got tragedies in this room. We've got examples of things that have happened that were tragic. But God is a protector, and He does and can shield us. And so that was such a beautiful example of His protection for these men as they lay exposed on the beach. Here was another interesting story that she tells in here, and I just wanted to read it to you as well. For years, Jack was plagued with one mishap after another. He worked outdoors much of the time and had such a wide variety of responsibilities that it was almost expected he would be in a position to encounter more accidents than most men. For example, when we visited with my folks, he would take advantage of Dad's welding shop to make carton racks for Pepsi displays. Once when he was bending the heavy wire for the back of the display, it sprang out of his hand and of all things flew up his nose, cutting the tender inner membrane. Blood began gushing out like a fountain. We found him right before he passed out. Another time he was pulling a huge concession trailer back to Brownwood. Our town is located in a valley. So just as you came into the city limits, you descended down one of the largest mountains around. Just as he started down the incline, the trailer came off the hitch and began to pass his truck. No one could believe that he was not killed or hurt badly in that episode. Later, as he and my father were putting a new roof on the barn, Jack went through the roof and found himself hanging by his ribs on the rafter as his feet and legs dangled below. Another time, two other guys asked him to help raise a deer blind that was made out of heavy pipe. With Jack in the middle, the three of them were all on one side of the deer blind, attempting to raise it up far enough to rock it into a standing position. Just as they had it up over their heads, one of the guys slipped. The two on the other side were able to run out from under the several hundred-pound deer stand, but Jack was stuck in the middle with no place to run. That monstrosity of a deer blind came crashing down on the back of his head, bending his back in two and driving his head to the ground barely 2 inches from his feet. Only God could have kept his back from snapping under the pressure. Once when he worked for the FMC company running the heavy machinery, he couldn't get his hand out from under the drill press in time, and it drove a chuck the size of a quarter through his hand. We had been confessing for years, the bones of the righteous shall not be broken. There was one surprised doctor when he heard what had happened and realized that the bones in Jack's hands were not broken.
Wow.
As the chuck came down, it had spread the carpal bones, allowing the metal to pass through without breaking a bone. It was during that accident that God got Jack's attention and made him realize that being accident-prone was a demonic assignment that needed to be broken. He finally said, "It's enough." He has prayed for, and supernaturally the accidents stopped. I think people would be dumbfounded to realize how many times they are putting up with arrows from the enemy that they should never have had to endure. Psalm 91 talks about the shield and the buckler. I think a buckler was a little shield they would wear on their arm to divert arrows and things that would come towards them. There's stuff we put up with that I don't think we have to put up with. Do you know what I'm saying? There are attacks that come against Christians that of course Satan is going to attack us. He hates us. He does not want us to survive. He doesn't want us to do well. He wants to diminish everything we're capable of doing. Sunday, I played the piano. Okay. It terrifies me to play the piano. I don't know why I'm so terrified of it, but I mentioned that to you. And afterwards, I felt really bad because I thought, you know what? I want worship service to be about worshiping God, not about my terror, not about me, not about my fear. I want it to be about God. And if Satan can come in and get us so distraught in our own abilities to do something that it becomes all about us, then we cease to worship God. And I felt really bad about that. I thought, that was just totally wrong. You know, it's going to be what it's going to be. If I make a mistake, I make a mistake. It doesn't matter. It's all about worshiping God. And Satan comes in a lot of ways. And God was just kind of revealing that to me, I think, on Sunday, that my goal was to lead to worship, but it became about my fear. And then that distracted everybody. And that was wrong. So I apologize. I ask your forgiveness for that. Satan will use any technique he can to diminish what the Word of God wants to do in any setting. And so we just have to get smarter and start using the weapons of our warfare against him. And the weapon of our warfare is the Word of God. Now, I'm going to pass, where's my passer at, or Veronica? Come up here, girl. Now, I'm going to pass one of these out to each of you. And this kind of, what I have on the board is sort of what's on this page. And this tells you kind of how to use the verse mapping. It's the instructions for how to fill this particular one out.
Here, did you get one?
Is there enough verse? I can see it. Thank you. Thank you so much. So what you do is, the first thing you do is, you can do, I put colored pencils because some of you are so creative. I'm not. I'm a black and white kind of person. Well, I have some red on. I'm a black and white person. But we're going to put here the verse, and we're going to start with Psalm 91.
They are kind of small.
First one. Just the first verse in Psalm 91. And then in the little box, write out the verse. Okay? I hope I can fit it in this little box.
Right scripture in the box. We'll have to bring it.
And I think this is actually next.
Just only the first verse?
Just that one verse. We're just doing one verse at a time.
We're supposed to start here. What
I like that last part.
First we need to write this here, don't we? Scripture.
Yeah. Psalm 91.
Psalm 91, but we'll start with one. Just
Okay.
verse one. The word.
So he who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Now, if you will look at Psalm 91, it just switches all over the place in who's speaking. First person, second person, third person, just, it's all over the place. So it gets to be a little confusing when you look at this chapter. You figure, who's talking here? Who's saying it? I will do this. He will do that. You know, and so it flips all over the place. So this is written in third person. So I just wrote on here that it's third person. Because the author is talking about he, you, me. He's talking about us, okay? So he's telling us, if you dwell in that secret place of the Most High, you're going to abide under the shadow of the Almighty. We're going to be so close to Him that we're under His shadow. You got to be pretty close to something to be under its shadow, unless it's a skyscraper, right? So to dwell, when we dwell close to God, we're right under His shadow. He's close enough to protect us. You know what I'm saying? So what I did, and here's what I would like for you to do. I'm going to do it one way, and you're probably going to do it a different way, which means you're going to get my perspective today, but next week I want your perspective on it, okay? Because you might pull this thing apart in a whole different way than I do, all right? I'm not saying that my way is the only way, because it's certainly not. And I may miss all kinds of beautiful things that's in this verse because I'm looking at it from one perspective. You may look at it from another perspective and pull out a whole different bucket of information from it, okay? So that's the beauty of this. It's like you can't do it wrong, all right? I have put some books on your table. They may be helpful, they may not be helpful. There's a commentary and a dictionary over here. There's a Vines over here. There's a Hebrew and Greek study here. And I think there's a book on the etymology of words there. Anyway, there's books. It took 3 trips, well, one for me and one with me and Deb to bring them all in here. Let me just tell you, doing research can be exhaustive. Just by picking up all the books you got to go through to come, because each one of these books is going to have maybe a paragraph about Psalm 91. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But you've got all different aspects from all different kinds of people about what Psalm 91 means. But there are some wonderful apps, and I'm going to just encourage you right now, some that I like. That you can put on your phone. It's a whole lot easier to carry. A whole lot easier to carry. One that's free that I really like is the Blue Letter Bible.
Yes. Yep.
And you can download that on your phone. It has let's see, I forget what else. It's got some commentaries in it. It's got different versions of the Bible in it that you can use, and they're all free. You can donate to them. There's a daily reading schedule that if you want to just read through the Word, it'll remind you, where you're at and how to read through it. You can highlight verses in this. If you want to highlight something, you just hit the highlight thing and it'll highlight a verse for you. I forget all the commentaries that are, that's going to read it to me. It'll read it to you. Sometimes in the shower or when I'm getting ready in the morning in the bathroom, I'll put on Psalm 91 and let it just read it to me. Get it into my spirit, get it into my spirit. So it's just reading it to me, which is really great. I don't know, the older I get, the harder it is for me to memorize. I don't know if I've lost brain cells or what it is. My grandchildren can memorize so well, and I'm just not very good at that. But I just love getting that into me. And then if you click on a verse, you can come up with, I forget how to use all of this because I've been using a different one here lately. But that's one that's really, really good. I have found some of them will spam you to death. So I think the U version, you have to turn off all the notifications if you don't want to just get spammed to death on that one. I like it. It's a good version and it's also free. One that I paid a little bit of money for is called eSword. And eSword has a lot of things in it, and some of them you have to buy. But the good thing about it is you can share them between devices. You can put it on all of your devices once you've paid for it. You save that little code. Don't throw away that code that you get with it. And David and I, he bought it first, and he bought several Bibles that he liked, and then he saved the code, and then he shared them with me so we both have access to all of those codes. So that one does cost a little bit of money, but it's really a good resource that you can use.
$2.99.
Huh? It's $2.99. I had a coupon for $2, so I got it for 99 cents. I'm not cheap at all.
Is that for life or?
No, that's for life. I mean, you should be able to keep it on your devices. You just have to remember what email it's under and write down those codes. They're about, 12 or 16 numbers that you have to remember to download the different Bibles. On this one, I've got commentaries. All right. I'm not just going to go through here and list all of them, but there are several that we have so we can look through that. There are dictionaries you can Google things. Google is great. As I heard this one pastor say that Google is inspired. Because it can find a verse when he can't find it in his Bible app. Google has really worked at predicting what you mean, and the Bible apps don't have all of that in it, but you can, a lot of times you can find a verse you're looking for in that. There are dictionaries in Google, you can look things up in that. So there's a lot of good resources. And then if you want to just search for, what does this mean? There are all kinds of articles on the internet that kind of that give you an idea of what it means. You do have to be a little bit careful because some people are a little wacko, I have found, in their interpretation. So read it and pray about it and use everything with a grain of salt, is all I'm saying, okay? Yes?
I just got questions a lot. It is a really good resource.
Okay, Got Questions is a good resource that Nancy has found. So there's a lot of resources on our phones that we can use, and so just saying. So what I did when I started tearing this verse apart, I looked at this. That told me it was in the third person, okay? Then I began to just look at what are the words in this verse. So dwells, secret place, most high, abide, shadow, and almighty. I took those words and I just began to look up the definition. I also have an app, and I don't think it's available anymore. It used to just be on Android phones, and it was called My Sword Bible. Now if you look for it, you come up with eSword. But my Sword Bible, if you happen to have had it, it kind of had a crusader look to it. It had a sword and and like a shield with a cross on it. It had all of the Strong's reference numbers in there. So, I mean, immediately you could just look up the Strong's reference. And so I've kept that little Bible on my phone. I love it. And I'm not sure if the others, if you can get the Strong, you might be able to look up the Strong's words on some of these others to find out what the Strong's reference. Do you know what I'm talking about, Strong's? Does anybody not know what a Strong's is?
No, I do.
You know. Strong's, let me see, I've got one
Is
here.
this Strong's?
It's got the Strong's, there it is. This is Strong's.
And you have to like
And you gotta be strong to pick it up. So this is the Strong's exhaustive concordance of the Bible. This one is based on the King James Version. The words, if you're looking it up, it'd have to be in the King James Version. But any words you look up it will give you you can look at the definitions for it in the original Greek or Hebrew. You can see what the original text was, which is sometimes very helpful because how many of you know the same English word can have several meanings, all of them sort of related but having a little different twist to them. Same with words in the Bible. Sometimes there's a little different twist. And when you look at all of the definitions to it and you look that up, then you begin to say, oh, you get a better overall picture of what the author was saying. That's all I'm saying. Okay, it's sometimes it's totally a different use in one area depending on the context than on another area. But there are versions. Excuse me, I'm sorry, step on you there. That you could where you could get that. So those are helpful when you're studying a word. So then what I did in one of these circles is I put dwell. And I wrote, it means. When I looked up the meaning this would have been in the Hebrew because it's Old Testament. Old Testament was written in Hebrew. New Testament was written in Greek. So translated to Greek, I guess, eventually. So because Greek was the language of the day. So the Hebrew meant to remain. To settle.
To settle.
Abide.
I can't even read that.
Can you read this? I have to write little because my circles are little.
No, that's fine.
Continue. Inhabit. To sit. I like that one.
To sit?
Yeah. Martha sat at Jesus' feet. To live as a resident. I'm just going to put be a resident. Be a resident. I'm running out of room. To reside.
I can see.
Shelter.
Shelter.
Uh-huh.
Are we supposed to be doing that?
And homestead.
Homestead. I like that one.
I like that one too. David's family homesteaded property. And in order to homestead property back in the, must have been in the 20s, the 1920s, they had to live there. In order to claim that property and homestead it, they had to actually live on it. So that's what God is saying to us. So do you see how that gives us different aspects of the same? The word dwell means you're sitting there, you're there, you're staying there, you're inhabiting the place. To inhabit a place, you've got to live there. You've got to be there on a permanent basis. You've got to remain there. You've got to settle there. You've got to be a resident, and it's a shelter. So that were some of the definitions of the word dwell. Secret place was the next one I did. And I found for that hiding place, protection, and covering. So a secret place would be a hiding place. Anybody ever want to hide? I have protection
one at home, I'll do it at home. Because this
and covering.
You just put them in the circle, honey.
is, yeah, that's what I'm doing,
Okay.
the dwell and the secret.
Okay, and then,
It could be
Yes.
any kind of dictionary.
do I need to move? All right, let's,
Joanne.
I'm sorry, what?
When we look up these words, we could use just a regular dictionary?
You could, absolutely, just to get
Because
an
I got a
idea.
world dictionary at home.
Okay,
Joanne?
I'm just writing down on the circles.
I'm sorry, heard of Joanne? Yes.
My Bible also says for shelter, temple, for the
Temple.
Old Testament.
Oh, for which
For
one?
the shelter, that's, the temple was their shelter in the Old Testament.
Okay, and which word was that in the secret place?
Oh, I'm sorry, my Bible is in NIV. So
Okay,
he who dwells in the shelter of the Most High,
the shelter, the
Of the
secret
Most
place,
High.
and that would have been temple?
yeah.
Yeah, the commentary said temple too.
Okay, good. See, we're getting new things, new ideas here, I love that. Okay, the next was Most High that I underlined.
So now we have Most High.
And this word in the Hebrew is Elyon, E-L-Y-O-N. It was a hyphen, L. Okay. And it is a title, it's used as a title. And if you guys have other things, call them out, let me know. The Supreme High,
This is under the Most High.
Yeah.
New circle.
So I've got arrows.
and it is also used as the name of God.
Would you read those back to us?
Okay, so Most High, the Hebrew word was Elyon, E-L-Y-O-N. It is used as a title. It means the Supreme High, and it is used as a name of God, Elyon. So when we live in that secret place, that temple place of God, so it's speaking of God here, that person shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. So the next word I did was abide, which is very similar to dwell, isn't it? I can't write.
I think abide is more deliberate though. You know, dwell, you can kind of be dwelling somebody just kind of in a passive moment. But if you're abiding with somebody, you're having to take an active motion to stay under that protection.
Yes, I like that, yeah. And the meaning of that was to stay permanently, which is exactly what you were saying.
That's what she said.
Stay permanently. To continue.
Why does she have right in the middle of this word?
We're not just passing through, we're continuing there. And it also means to dwell, to lodge.
To remain in one place. Would that be abide?
To remain, and to tarry. Okay,
Did you say Terry?
tarry, T-A-R-R-Y. The next word, oh, I don't have enough circles up here. Okay, shadow. And Shaddai, is the word. And you've heard of El Shaddai.
Exactly.
So this is Shaddai. It means the Almighty.
Continue to remain Terry.
Oh, I'm sorry, I got the wrong word. I didn't have enough circles, and I dropped one. Let's just change this.
Shadow.
I'll go ahead and put shadow, but that's almighty. Shadow means shade. I'm sorry. Defense. Protection.
Oh, yes.
Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I'm so sorry. I have forms for you. I just gave you. Did you pass these out? I'm such an airhead some days. Here, give everybody one of these.
It's so much fun to talk.
I'm sorry, I had the blanks and I forgot, I gave you the instructions.
Nope, well, now we get the, now we get the blank circle.
Oh, the
Blank circle. This is the key to the blank circle.
Who didn't get one?
There.
Who did not get one?
Got one. Oh, that makes sense.
I'll give you some more of them. Later, I totally forgot. Okay,
Well,
1, 2, 3,
it's
4,
like
5,
I
and I
got
need
you.
another circle.
Okay.
And the last circle would be almighty.
Yeah, yeah.
And almighty means Shaddai.
All right.
And Shaddai means the Almighty.
What's what I have over here?
I can't write on here, it's so hard.
I have a question.
Yes.
We're not really following what's in these circles as far as we're, right now in that circle, we're supposed to record
Right,
the
and
context
so
of the verse by knowing
There are a
what
lot
happened.
lot of different ways you could do it. See, I'm just taking keywords and filling in the circles
Oh,
for that.
okay, okay.
But there's a lot on here, it gives you a lot of different ideas of ways you can map them.
Okay,
So you might want to take, I took definitions. You might want to look at alternate translations.
okay,
You might want to
I
put
see.
references
Oh.
that tie
Got
them
it.
together.
okay,
You might
okay.
want to do some of the other things that it says in
I
here.
see,
Okay.
okay.
So yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do it. That's the reason this one way is not the only way. I was just
Okay.
looking at what does this mean? What can I just dig out of the very top layer of this?
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
so Almighty means the Almighty, the most powerful. It's a title of God, El Shaddai. Job used this word Almighty. Used it 31 times in the book of Job. But there's several more. I can't reach it to. Sorry, I can't get down there to do it. All right. So then, as I was studying this first verse, I wanted to know who wrote it. Even though it's in the Psalms, does not mean it was written by David. Okay. Did you know that David did not write all of the Psalms?
Right.
So we don't know for sure who wrote this.
Really?
Well, my Bible.
We think it might have been written by David.
Moses.
Moses?
Um,
Well, 90 is Moses. Relates the two.
After it says, some think this psalm was written by David after his advice to his son Solomon in 1 Chronicles 28. So it's possible that David is the author. However, it's also thought that Moses was the author.
Right, and David put it into,
So
Or a temple person.
and they think, and Jewish tradition is that Moses wrote it, but there's you know, we just don't know. There's a lot of reasoning to believe both, so we don't know. Phyllis Dake, who is really excellent on the Bible, thinks it was Moses, and that he wrote it at the beginning of the 40 years in the wilderness. It was written to comfort the church in the wilderness while going through the 40-year curse, and to assure children of God in all ages that his providence in their earthly pilgrimage. Jewish tradition ascribes it to Moses. So I'm kind of thinking maybe it was Moses, you know, I don't know. You know, these are the things we don't know for sure. We can suppose. So what I did is I wrote some notes on the back of my page as well, because I wrote some of the other translations and things on the back of my paper. The Passion says, "When you sit enthroned under the shadow of Shaddai, you are hidden in the strength of God Most High." The Tree of Life Bible, which was translated by Messianic Jewish rabbis, says, he who dwells in the shelter of Elyon will abide in the shadow of Shaddai. And the Amplified says, he who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will remain secure and rest in the shadow of the Almighty, whose power no enemy can withstand. So, so those were some of the things that I was looking at when I did this. Now, something I noticed after I had gone through it was, the similarity in the first half and the second half of the verse. So dwells and abide are very similar. Secret place and shadow are very similar. And then Most High and Almighty are very similar. So it's like he's using different words in the first half of the verse than he uses in the second half of the verse, but very similar. Very similar, okay, in the use of his words. Who's the audience? This audience is to anyone who claims it. I think it was not only written to the Israelites when they were coming through the wilderness, or to the advice David was giving to Solomon, but it's also to you and me today. It was either written, and I've already gone through that, either written after David blessed Solomon, or just before the 40 years in the wilderness, depending on which is correct. Style, what kind of style would this be? Who knows? I didn't know how to describe it. Is it poetic? Is it prayer?
Kind of a prayer, poetic prayer.
Poetic prayer, maybe?
I think it's hard for us to see it because we don't see it in the original translation. So it's hard to tell how, it might have sounded much more poetic in the original language.
Might have. It is included in the Psalms, which is a book of poetry, so possibly that's the reason it was included there. Purpose is to declare our safety by dwelling.
Yep.
I'll leave it at dwelling with God in his presence. Then I'll let you guys fill in these others because it's whatever it means to you. what does this mean? What does it mean to you? What does this verse mean to you? What is it saying? Just what is it actually saying to you? And then how do you apply that to your life? Okay? So what is this? What is there in this verse that is applicable to me, where I'm at? And so those are the ways that we would just begin to tear a verse apart, look at it, and then there are Bibles that are just great with the cross references, and I don't have. Let's see, I don't know if I have one with a cross reference in it. None of these have it. I'll have to, I've got some good Bibles at home that have cross-references, and if you're not familiar with cross-referencing, you know, a Bible will have, you might have a Bible, and in the very center, it's got a little column, and there'll be all these little verses written in there. And if you look at those and you find the number that matches the verse you're looking at, it might give you a cross-reference to someplace else in the scripture where that applies to what that verse is talking about. And those are really good ways to study your Bible, to cross-reference and to go back and forth to find different, where this might have been used someplace else or how it might apply to something else. And those cross-referencing is very valuable. So, yes, Kathy?
I got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I've got a Bible that was given to me back in '92, and it was an $80 Bible. It was one at a Bible bookstore. And it has a thing in there, besides the contents, to the dictionary actually, it has a thing in there to where you look up a subject, and the whole subject, it shows you who you want to look up, but it tells you what page to go to in the Bible, but it gives you all the verses right there. So you don't have to look them up individually. They're right on the page for the subject you're looking for.
That would be nice.
So that would that
Sounds like
work?
a really nice Bible, yeah.
It's in
It's
the
a good
King-
study
I have
Bible.
that one, it's on the King James Version.
No, this is totally different.
It's like,
You
it's
should
different,
bring us
because the
versus
King
the
James
versus the
Version
King
has,
James, yeah.
has the, in the middle,
Cool.
the Bible.
The
The-
cross-reference.
Yes, it
Yeah.
does. The King James Version has it.
There are a lot of wonderful study Bibles
In a
out
secret
there.
place.
They're all kind of different, you know what I mean? They might, but if you're wanting to study something, or, you know,
And don't hear.
I don't know about you guys, but I often come to a verse and I'm thinking, I don't have a clue what that means.
Yeah.
I read it, I know what the words mean, but I don't have a clue what the meaning of that is. And sometimes you want to just stop, because, like I said, we have a tendency to get into a Bible reading program, and we got to get through our 5 chapters today because we got to get up and get the dishes done, the bed made, and get to work.
Yes.
And we don't have time to stop and just look at a verse. But if, I just want to encourage you, if there's a verse that you're reading and you think, I don't even know what that means, that doesn't hit me here, I know I should understand it, but I'm not getting it, then stop, write it down, and when you have time, just begin to pick it apart and say, Lord, and you know, the most important part we can ever do before we ever read our Bible or start to study is stop and just say, God, reveal this to me. Show me what you're saying through the Word. Because if we don't get it, we're missing out on a lot of the benefit of reading the Bible if we don't understand what we're reading, if we're not getting it. And so I think the verse mapping can be a tool that we can use to stop, to, just figure it out and make it meaningful for your everyday life. There have been times when I would just read the word and oh my word, it would just jump at me and just exactly what I needed. Just that word was what I needed that day. And that's really what we want anytime we come to church. I don't care how many times you sat in a service. Come with your heart open and say, God, what's the word for me today? another word may be for somebody else today, but he cares enough about every one of us individually that he wants to feed every one of us when we come. When we're faithful to come, it shouldn't just be a habit we have. It shouldn't just be a duty we were fulfilling. We come because we want him to do something in our hearts. And so this is just another way of just breaking down the word and saying, God, I heard that. I know there's some meat in there that I need to have you ever had a great steak, and there was some meat left on that bone. It was so good. You just wanted to chew on it for a little while and get all the good out of it. Well, sometimes God wants us to just chew on the bone a little bit and get all the meat out of it that we can, and all of the good out of it that we can. So let's see, it's only a few minutes till 11. Why don't we I'll let you out a little bit early. I don't want to keep you all day long, but why don't you take verse 2 and however you want to do it. If you don't want to do definitions, that is just fine. If you want to look at it from a different perspective, I think that would be fabulous, because then we can bring all of our perspectives together and then begin to share the individual things that we all got out of it, okay? Because I don't want to just say this is the only way to do it, because it's certainly not the only way to do it. All right? So there are some references there. I hope you have some references on your phone, and I'll pass you out another blank paper, okay?
Could you pass a box too?
I'll pass the box.